was like in Germany at that time?
My late husband had set up the Afro Kultur Forum, so African Culture Forum, because he recognized that many African students in Germany, there was racism, and they were lonely, they were getting into problems, drinking too much, because it's also a coping mechanism of being alone. Even if they had girlfriends who were, German girlfriends, when it came to Christmas time or Easter time, or when they were never taken home to the family. So they were kind of left. So it started off by actually organizing parties where, they could be themselves, and this to reduce the drinking, because you were in a safe space, you could enjoy yourself. So that's how it started. So he started that, and then I got involved. And then we started to run seminars for our African students, looking at development issues, because many African students who are sent abroad will go back home and occupy leading positions in the government, or mainly in the government rather than in business. And so what we wanted to do was to get at the mindset of these African students, to make them understand how the terms of trade were not in favor of African countries, and that they were falling into a debt trap. And so it's not just corruption of the leadership, but it's just the whole way of terms of trade and ways of doing things, that if you just learn a Western centric way, you're not looking about how you can develop your country in your image and for the benefit of your people. Yes.
You were running these seminars, in Germany?
Yes.
And you weren't a student at that time, right?
No.
Okay, but you were still running.
But my late husband was a student. He was a PhD student. So we set up this so we would run these seminars once a month. We and then have parties afterwards. But we really were engaging. So we had people from Cameroon, from Nigeria, from Eritrea, from all different parts of Africa, and it was really interesting over the years to get, and that's how I had a much more deeper understanding of how things were happening on the continent from
through those seminars.
Perspective of from what the students were sharing and how they would explain things. I had people from Uganda, from Chad, and that's how I still know people 40 years later.
Okay. And that's actually, I didn't know that about, you didn't mention that when we had our precursor conversation, that you were running seminars at a university in Germany. Do you know what university was this?
THK, the University of Karlsruhe, the technical school for engineering. So we would, rent rooms, because as a student, you can do these things. You can organize parties, you can do that. So we would do development seminars to really to get students to really understand the importance of their role, that they needed as they say in German, an Auseinandersetzung, to really critically evaluate what they're learning and what difference they could make. And be critical of the whole economic development paradigm.
I love that. That's actually pretty cool, because that's kind of what I wanted to do. That's what I'm trying to do with this podcast. I'm trying to provide information in a way that can allow people to think critically and then see how they can make changes to either themselves internally or to their society or community in some sort of positive way. And I think it was actually you that told me that that's the Sankofa way of doing things.
That's right.
Looking at history and seeing what we can learn from that to make things better.
In the future.
And sorry, what did you say?
In the future. So Sana, Ko, and Fa. So the symbol is a bird with its beak going back to its tail. So it means you go back and you take something important. But the point is that you do that for the future. So it's a bit like when you look back into history to know more who you are or where you come from, so that you can understand your place in the global world, rather than whatever narrative has been pushed on you by someone else because it suited their paradigm. You see, we need to be able to tell our own stories, which says, the good, the bad, and the ugly, so we can understand where we are.
Amazing. And Sankofa is, what language is that?
Akan. From Ghana.
So it's from Ghana, yes. I figured as much. And
the Ashanti people.
And you started a Sankofa school in Germany. Was that separate from the seminar thing you were doing? Or?
Yes.
Okay. How did you have time to do all of this? Didn't you say you were pregnant?
Oh, don't even ask. Maybe it was for my own children, because I was having, I perhaps when I first started, I must have had about 2 or 3 by that time. And
how long did you live in Germany for in total?
14 years.
Wow. Okay. Continue.
Yeah. So, and also it was other things. I'd given a talk. I remember it was a turning point why I started it. I used to work for Siemens. Siemens is an international conglomerate that designs conductors, cars. It's a big German.
But is it the SIEM?
Yeah,
that company?
Yeah.
Okay. So I know Siemens. I just called them Siemens.
Yes, it's in German. So I was teaching intercultural and management communication. I designed courses there to teach project managers in Siemens who were going abroad in China or in the Middle East, and they were doing their work, but they needed to talk in English because people weren't speaking to them in German. So I used to do that kind of training. That was my sort of day job that was earning money. Mm-hmm. And I remember I brought in the whole thing about racism. I decided, we should bring this in. Mm-hmm. And I made such an impression on one of the departmental managers. He asked if I would go and do something at the school of his wife. I said, oh, of course I will. Yeah, I will. So I did. I went and I gave a talk to these children. And I remember when I finished, I went into the staff room and the teacher started to tell me about some of the horrific things that were happening. And they were saying that one time they had 2 African children who came to the school. They were in Germany. They were supposed to be at the school during the school fete, and the children stoned them.
What, during the school fete?
Yeah, so they were part of the school. They were a pupil at the school, and they came to the fete, and children were stoning them and telling them to get out. They don't belong, you niggers.
Wow.
And when I heard that, I suddenly thought, you know what? If this was
how old were these kids?
Small children. I mean, I'm talking about, 11, 12, something like that.
Yeah.
So I said, okay. I decided there and then I was going to do something, because I knew if this happened to my own children, I would go mad.
Yeah.
Yeah. The police, as I say, the Jamaicans say, the police would have to come and take me away. Yeah. Because I would go spare. So what I did was I started to ring all the African women that I knew.
In Germany?
Through all the other things I was doing. I said, so how was it for your children at school? And they started to tell me. I said, you're telling me lies. I said, this is happening, that is happening. And then they were quiet. I said, we're starting a school. We're starting a school next Saturday. So that's what we did. So we created a safe space for African families to come with their children. So I had from Eritrea and Cameroon and whatever. We used to buy black books so that the children could see themselves reflected. I used to teach the children. We used to have parent seminars. So this was a safe space. And I did that for about 9 years.
I see. Wow. So you mentioned something. You said when the 2 African kids were attending a fete. What is a fete? What is that?
A school fete. A school fair where you have everybody can come and it's on a Saturday or something like that, and you're playing games. So it's an open fete where they're probably fundraising for the school.
Oh, I see. So, so this happened on a Saturday.
This happened during a school fete, whether it was on a Saturday, I'm not sure. But this is more an open event.
Yeah.
And in fact, I knew the father of these children.
I see.
I mean, I remember visiting this guy at his home. He was married to a German. And in his home, he was like a king. He was upright. He was, this was his space. I think he was someone high in his society, if you ask me. Because I could see how when he acted with some other African students, they would do running, go and fetch. So I thought, oh, he must be somebody quite important. But when I saw him outside, standing at a bus stop in Karlsruhe, where I lived, he was bent, he was small, like he was insignificant. And that's the impact of this sort of toxic culture where you're not belong and you don't fit.
Yeah.
It physically impacts you. So I didn't want that to happen to my children.
Wow. That's quite powerful. And when you did this, it was every Saturday you did disco, and did you start to see changes in the children